Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started in a child's pose. So sink those hips nice and low. Stretch the arms out, walking those fingertips toward the front of the mat. Just let your forehead get heavy, maybe rock it side to side. Just take this minute here in this kind of closed off shape to close off from the external and tap into your internal. So we can do that through our breath. So start to turn on that Ujjayi breathing with a nice inhale and then a nice long exhale. Breathing in and breathing out. So this child's pose is always here for you during your practice. And this breath is always here for you. So when things get challenging, come back to the breath. We're gonna go ahead and come to your fingertips and just kind of activate your arms a little more. Bring the forearms off the mat. And maybe sink your hips just a little deeper. And then crawl on up to your hands and knees, stacking those joints. Let's find the cat-cow. So we're gonna breathe in, look up. And then we're gonna round through the spine, tuck the chin. Good, breathe in for your cat. And then breathe out for your cat. Just take a couple rounds here, breathing, moving around as you feel necessary. And just one more round here. And then find that neutral spine. So press down through your palms. Really activate your core. Lengthen through the crown of your head. We're gonna reach the right arm forward, left leg back. So press down through your left hand. Find that stabilization here. Flex your foot. Good. Holding and breathing. And then release the hand and the leg back down to the mat. The left hand reaches, right leg back. Right leg is nice and long. And then that thumb is pointing up, pinky down. 2 more breaths here. And then release to the mat. Let's take a couple rounds of those cat-cows again. Good. Just breathing here, maybe adding in a little bit more hip movement if you feel you need it. And then come right back to that neutral spine, and we're gonna extend the right arm again, left leg long. And now we're gonna bring the elbow to knee to touch, curling in and extending long. 2 more times, curling in and extend. Bring it in and extend long. And then release the hand and the knee. Left hand, right leg, curling in. Really curl through the spine here, activating the core. Elbow and knee touch. 1 more. Good, and then you can release down to the mat. You're gonna hover those knees up just a little bit, so tuck the toes, hover the knees just an inch here in that bear plank. Lengthen through the crown of the head. Flat back. Press through the palms. 3 more breaths. 2, 1, lift the hips, find your downward facing dog. So here you can pedal out your feet, you can just do what feels natural to you, and then we'll find a moment of stillness when you're ready. The gaze should be between your feet. And then put a deep bend in your knees. And then try to sink the heels a little closer to the mat as you straighten. 1 more time, bend the knees. And then sink the heels, straighten the legs. Lengthen through the spine and lift the hips just a little deeper. Reach that right leg long. Three-legged dog. And then we're gonna put a bend in the knee and then open up, bend in the knee and open up. Beautiful. From here, we're gonna step that right foot to your right thumb. And we're in that runner's lunge. Lengthen through the spine and then reach your right arm up for a nice easy twist. Breathe in, lengthen. Breathe out, rotate. One more breath to lengthen. And then twist a little deeper. Set the right hand down. Step back to your high push-up position and lower to your forearms. So I want you to think of one long line here from your head, your hips, and your heels. And the shoulders are right above your elbows. Breathing. Two more breaths. Now lower the hips to the mat, find Sphinx pose. So open up, broaden through the collarbones, press down through your forearms, breathe in, and then exhale through the mouth, let it go. One more breath in, exhale, let it go. Come back up to tall arms, and then push yourself all the way back to your downward facing dog. Left leg is gonna lift, and then we're gonna put a nice bend, opening up through the hip. You can roll around your ankle if you want. And then the left foot is gonna come to the left thumb. Find that runner's lunge. Lengthen through the spine, and this time your left arm reaches up. Find that twist. Reaching up and twist, good. Breathing. And really press through your back heel, lengthen through that right leg. And then bring that hand down, step back to your high push-up. Lower down to your forearms, one more time here. Really waking up that core. Forearm plank, so lift your hips up. There you go. Three breaths here. Two. And one, come up to your tall plank. And then send the hips up for your downward facing dog. Pedal out those feet one more time here. And then we're gonna tiptoe, walking our feet to the top of our mat. Slowly, slowly, slowly rolling up, reaching up. And then bring your hands to your heart center. Fold forward, hands to the mat. And then walk those feet a little wider so that they are hip distance apart. Grab opposite elbows and then just let the head hang for your ragdoll. You can sway side to side. You can shake your head out, yes and no. Feel that release through the spine. And then let the hands come to the mat. Heel to the feet back together. And then we're gonna rise on up for extended mountain pose. So reach your arms all the way up. And then fold forward, hands through your heart. And then halfway lift, inhale. Exhale to fold. Step back for your high push-up. And you can lower to your knees, or you can stay just like this, bending the elbows halfway for your chaturanga. And then upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Breathe here. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lift the heels, bend the knees, step or hop to the top of your mat, and then come on up to stand halfway, and then forward fold. Breathe in, root down, rise up, and then fold forward. Halfway lift, and fold. Step back, high push-up, low push-up, upward facing dog, downward facing dog. Breathing in, breathing out. Lift the heels on the inhale, on the exhale, hop or step to the top of your mat. Find a halfway lift, breathe in, flat back, and then fold forward, let it go. Reach up, extended mountain pose, and then fold forward, hands through heart center. Halfway lift and fold. Step back, low push up, upward facing dog, and then downward facing dog. Breathe in, heels lift, bend the knees, hop or step to the top. Halfway lift and fold. And then root down, rise up, extended mountain pose, fold forward, exhaling, let it go. Halfway lift, breathe in and fold. And then step back to your high push-up, low push-up, upward facing dog, downward facing dog. Beautiful, 5 breaths here. Find the stillness. Practice keeping calm. One more breath. We're going to lift the heels, bend the knees, hop to the top of the mat. Halfway lift, and then fold. Now we're going to find our chair pose. So bend the knees, sink the hips, reach the arms. And while we're here, those big toes are touching. Your shoulders are nice and relaxed. And then think of sending that tailbone to the back of your mat. So can you sink just a little deeper and rock the weight to your heels? Reach those arms strong. Now, what can you soften while you're here? This is a pretty challenging pose. Sometimes the mind starts to wander. Instead of thinking, I can't do this, this is hard, I want you to think, I can soften my face. I can relax my shoulders. And when we focus on some of those easier parts of the pose, that's when the magic happens. This practice is about finding the balance between effort and ease. One more breath in, and then fold forward. Halfway lift, fold, step back, high push-up, low push-up, upward facing dog, downward facing dog. That right foot is going to step to the right thumb, and we're going to find warrior one. So spin the back foot flat, and then reaching the arms straight up overhead. And sometimes I like to bring my hands to my hips here, just to do a little self-check that my hips are nice and square to the front. So that right hip needs to come back just a little. And we're really putting a lot of pressure in that back foot. So that back edge, lengthen the arms up, actively reach those fingertips. And then we're going to interlace the hands behind your back. Lengthen and fold forward to find your humbly bound warrior. So that right shoulder is going to come to the inside of your knee. And you can drop that head out. Breathing here. Staying active in your back leg. Coming back up to your warrior one, so release that bind. Reach the arms nice and tall. Bring the hands to the mat. Back to high push-up. Low push-up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. The left foot steps to the left thumb. Find your warrior one feet, and then rise on up. Stacking those shoulders right above your hips. And then rotating that right hip back, squaring off the hips. Active pressure in the feet. Interlace the hands at your lower back. Lengthen and fold, humbly bound warrior, that left shoulder on the inside of your knee. Keep that nice bend in the left leg. Really using your core to stabilize. As we come on up, bring those arms up. And then hands to the mat, high to low push-up. Upward facing dog, downward facing dog. So we're going to go through these sun bees here. Lift the heels, bend the knees, step or hop to the top. Halfway lift, lengthen through the spine, forward fold. Chair pose, bend the knees, reach the arms up, one breath, and then fold through. Halfway lift, and fold. Step back, high to low. Upward facing dog, downward facing dog. Right foot steps to your right thumb. Warrior one, we come right up, breathe, and then bring the hands down to the mat. High to low. Upward facing and downward facing dog. Left foot steps. Spin that back foot flat, coming up, reaching those arms. And then to the mat, step back, high to low, push up. Upward facing dog, downward facing dog. 3 breaths. Sink the heels to the mat. Press through the thumb and forefinger. Lift the heels, inhale, bend the knees, step or hop. Halfway lift, and fold. Chair pose, bend and reach, and then forward fold. Halfway lift, and fold, step back, high to low. Upward facing, shine the collarbones, good. Lifting back, downward facing dog. Step right foot to right thumb. Warrior one, coming up, stacking the shoulders over the hips. Hands come down to the mat. High to low. Upward facing, downward facing, left foot steps. Coming up to your warrior one. Hands to the mat. High to low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. We're going to do one more round here. Lift the heels. Step or hop to the top. Halfway lift and fold. Chair pose. Sink low. Reach the arms high. Good. And forward fold. Halfway lift. Hands to the mat. Step back. High to low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Right foot, warrior one. Breathe in. Hands to the mat as you exhale. High to low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Left foot, warrior one. High to low, or reaching up. High to low push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Come to your child's pose. And just breathe, sinking those hips nice and low. Good. Take a moment here, coming back to the breath. Appreciating this rest after all that movement. 2 more breaths. And we're going to find our downward facing dog. We're going to step that right foot forward. Warrior one, coming right up. And we're going to take that humbly bowed warrior again. So hands behind the back, lengthen before you lower down. Just nestling that right shoulder. Now come back up to your warrior one. And then you're going to pop your back heel up and then rotate those hips. Sink a little deeper into the right. Now we're in that crescent lunge. So making sure that we've got the knees stacked right above the ankle. The shoulders are relaxed. And that back leg is active. Bring your hands to your heart. Breathe in to lengthen. And then we're going to twist to the right. So your left elbow comes to the outside of your right knee. Option to lower the knee if you need to here in this pose. Lengthen through the crown of the head. Nice long spine. Get a little lower. You can fly those arms open if you want to take this pose just a little deeper. And then bring those hands back to your heart if you opened. And we're going to step into a chair pose, keeping the twist. So we're keeping that twist to the right. Take a peek down at your knees and make sure that they're level. So you might need to take a little adjustment there. And then just keep lengthening through the spine. Rotate, twisting to the right. Can you open up the arms to fly? And then we're gonna find a forward fold. And then you can take your feet hip distance apart, slide your palms underneath your feet for gorilla pose here. So your toes are gonna be tickling your wrists a little, and take a halfway lift to lengthen, and then bend into your elbows to really deepen the pose and straighten the legs. Good. Release the hands from here. Take a nice deep Buddha squat. So the toes are gonna be out, and then the hips are gonna sink low. And you can use your elbows for some leverage to really open up through the hips. Breathing here, inhale and exhale. Bring the hands to the mat, lift the hips back into that forward fold. Heel toe the feet together to touch, halfway lift. And then forward fold, step back, high to low push up. Quick vinyasa here just to rinse it out. And then downward facing dog. The left foot is gonna step forward now. Finding that warrior one, reach the arms up, back foot spins flat. Interlace those hands behind your back. Lengthen before you drop. Let that head hang heavy. Pressure on the back edge of that right foot. Coming on up, back to that warrior one, lift the arms, and then pop that back heel, and then come into your crescent lunge, sinking just a little deeper. Crescent lunge, so your right leg is back, arms are reaching up. Hands come to your heart, you're gonna twist this time to the left, so your right elbow comes to the outside of your left knee. See if you can bring the hands a little closer to your sternum, so really inch them closer to the center of your chest. Actively put pressure in both hands. You can always lower the back knee, or if you want to challenge yourself, open up, letting those arms fly. Then we're going to bring the hands back to heart center. The right foot steps to chair pose. Your arms stay the same, twisted chair. Take a peek down at those knees, level everything out. Big toes together to touch. Fly the arms. And then find that nice forward fold. Heel toe those feet to hip distance. Hook on your big toes with your 2-piece fingers, and then you're gonna lengthen, and we're gonna find this nice yogi toe lock here. So releasing that lower back and that nice forward fold. You can rock side to side if that feels good. And then release the hands. Let's take one more nice Buddha squat. So we're gonna have those toes point out, sink the hips low, use the elbows to open up through the hips. One more breath. Hands come to the mat. Into your forward fold, and then heel toe your feet together to touch, halfway lift, fold, and then step back to your high push-up, low push-up, upward facing dog, downward facing dog. We're gonna tiptoe the feet to the top of the mat, slowly, 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 using your core, and then rolling up one vertebrae at a time. Find that mountain pose. Find that rooting down through the feet. And we're gonna come into eagle. So your right arm is gonna come under your left, and then the right is gonna come over. And we're gonna sink down in that imaginary chair. And I want you to envision that there's a wall behind you. So that's gonna help you keep your shoulders and your hips stacked. And if you need to kickstand the right toes so that they're touching, if your balance is a little off today, that's okay. And then lift the elbows so that they're in line with your shoulders. Find one spot to soften your gaze. Focus here on your breath. Can you make the inhale and the exhale equal? Can you lengthen it out by just one count? So we're going to keep the arms, the right leg is going to come out in front of us, and then we're going to kick it back for an airplane. So we're in that T shape. We're lifting the back leg, we're flexing the back foot. And we're reaching in opposite directions. So the crown of the head wants to come to the front of the room and your heel wants to go to the back. Then we're going to open up into half moon so that left hand can come down to the mat or a block. And then that right arm reaches up and the toes turn to face the right wall. So really keep that back leg active. Really keep that top arm active. Reach, reach, reach for the sky. Focus on your breath. Now right arm drops, left arm lifts, and then you square the hips off. Lengthening, lengthening, good. Left arm lifts. And we're in a twisted half moon. So you can have that nice soft bend in the left leg. Reaching. 2 more breaths. Forward fold. So release the hand, release the foot, halfway lift. Fold. We're going to step back, high to low, push up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. And then tiptoe those feet back to the top of your mat. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Rolling up, vertebrae by vertebrae, finding your mountain pose. Ground down through the feet. So we're gonna take eagle on the left, so the left hand comes under the right, and we wrap the arms, and then the left foot comes over the right. Feel free to kickstand those toes for that added balance. And then lift those elbows up just a little. So you're really grounding down through that right foot. This balancing series is meant to challenge you. How can you remain calm when things get hard? We come back to the breath. We focus on what we can control. We can control the breathing. We can't necessarily control how long I'm going to make you hold the pose. So we breathe in and we breathe out. We're going to keep the arms, lift the left knee up before we kick it back for airplane. Flexing that back foot. Option to bring those hands down to the ground or to a block. Just breathe. And then we're going to find half moon. So the left hand is going to reach up to the sky. And then we're going to open up the hip. So we're going to flex the foot so the left toes are going to face the left wall. Holding for 3. Now bring the left hand down, right arm reaches up, twisted half moon. The toes are now going to point down to the ground, so we're squaring off the hips that were opened up to the left. How can you find length here in this twist? We're going to release the hand and the foot down. And we're going to take a halfway lift. And then fold. Step back, high to low push-up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. So stepping the right foot to the right thumb, we're going to find warrior 2. So we're opening up now. And then we just want to take a quick look down at those feet. So the front heel is going to intersect the back arch of your foot. Open up, lengthen the arms, really activate, reaching in both directions here. The back arm drops, right palm flips, and we reverse our warrior up and back. And then find your side angle pose. So your right elbow comes to your knee, and then the left hand comes up. And we're staying really nice and deep in the bend here of the legs. And maybe take that top arm for a half bind. So you bring it to your lower back, and then you really press that left shoulder back, opening up through the chest here. Reach that arm back up to the sky. And then we're going to take that reverse warrior. So stay low in the legs, right palm up. And now straighten the front leg and come into your triangle pose. So both legs are now straight. And I want you to think about being in between two panes of glass here so that your back is nice and flat and those shoulders are stacked one on top of another. You're going to bring both hands down to frame the foot, pop that back heel, and then lower the back knee. And then bring the hands to the inside of your foot and wiggle walk the feet, that right foot out to the edge of the mat. So we're in that low lizard lunge here. You can come down to forearms if you want. You can take your right hand and kind of actively press your right knee out to the side and come to the edge of your foot. This is a really nice big hip opener here. So breathe into that space. I'm going to have you come to your back toes, find that active runner's lunge. And then you're going to straighten your front knee and then step your back leg halfway up the mat for a pyramid pose. And we're just going to stay folded here. Lengthening through the spine. Pressing down through the feet. Now let's step the left leg back and the right leg to meet for a high push-up. Holding low push-up. Back to high push-up. Down to low push-up. Upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. Left foot's going to step. And we're opening all the way up to that warrior two. So take a peek down at those feet. Make sure our alignment is right so that front heel is intersecting the back arch. Sink just a little deeper here. And reach those arms just a little more active. We're going to reverse your warrior. So flip the left palm, back arm drops, reach up. And then side angle. So left elbow comes to the inside of the knee. Right arm reaches. Root down through the feet. And then we can do that half bind. So bring the top arm to the small of your back. And then let that help that right shoulder drop a little. Good. Reach the arm back up. Staying committed to these warrior two legs. We're going to reverse that warrior up and back, then straighten, and then come into your triangle pose. So pressing that back up against that imaginary wall. Reaching the right arm toward the sky. Bring both hands to frame the front foot. Come to the back toes, and then lower the knee. Bring the hands to the inside of the left foot and bring the left foot all the way to the edge of your mat. So we're in that nice lizard lunge, and you can lower down to your forearms if you want a little deeper stretch, or roll to the outside of the foot and then add that little extra pressure with your hand or your elbow. Breathing and softening into the pose. So you're going to come back to your right toes in the back, find that active runner's lunge, and then bring the back foot halfway up the mat as you straighten the front knee, and we're in a pyramid pose. So both legs are nice and straight. You can bring your hands to a block, you can bring your hands to your shin, whatever works for you. I want you to focus on lengthening out the spine. This is a nice stretch through the hamstrings. And then we're gonna meet back in a high push-up position. Spin the heels to the right to find side plank. And then reach your arm up. You can always lower that bottom knee if you need to. Or you can float the top leg for an added challenge. Breathing here. Pressing down through the palms, squeezing the inner thighs together. Come back through high push-up. Take a low push-up, back to high push-up. And then we're gonna drop the heels to the other side for your side plank. Reach that arm nice and tall. Squeezing your glutes, squeezing the legs. Back to your high push-up. Take a low push-up, back to high push-up. Low push-up, back to high push-up. One more low push-up, high push-up, and then come back to downward facing dog. Breathe here for just a moment. We can pedal out those feet. And then we're gonna rock forward to a high push-up. Lift the right toes. Bring the right knee to your right elbow. And then send it back, lower the toes. Left elbow, send it back. We're gonna do that one more each side. Send it back, lift, send it back. And then we're gonna lower all the way down to the mat. So we're laying on our bellies. You can drop to the left cheek. And just feel your body against the mat. Feel your heart beating. Take a moment of gratitude for the stillness. Bring your arms down by your sides. And then you're gonna flip your palms so that your palms are touching the mat. And bring your toes together to touch and squeeze the legs together as though they're one leg. Bring your forehead to the mat. We're gonna lift the head, neck, and shoulders up for locust pose. And then maybe we float the arms right at your sides. Yeah. And then maybe you float your feet up. And then I want you to try to connect your pinkies of your hands. So there's a lot of activation there in the triceps. Keep your gaze to the ground. So it keeps a nice long line. Release to the mat, bringing the other cheek. And this time we're going to come into bow pose. So bend your knees and then grab your ankles. And then you're gonna lift up with the chest and then lift up with the thighs, creating that U shape. And really deepen your breath here, so much so that you may rock forward and backward as you breathe. Release that, but keep your knees bent. Bring your hands underneath your forehead. And then you're going to just kind of windshield wiper your legs side to side here. All right, release those legs nice and long. Find an upward facing dog and then downward facing dog. And then we're gonna walk those feet to the top of the mat. Take a seat and roll down, slowly laying on your back. Bend your knees and then bring your feet to the mat. So we're gonna do a bridge pose here. So your feet are hip distance apart. We're gonna lift the hips up. And you can keep your hands pressing into the mat, or if you want to interlace your hands underneath you and kind of rock your shoulders underneath, you can. Just keep that chin tucked. Stay steady here and breathe. Press down through the feet. On the next inhale, you can lower your hips. Release. And then breathe in one more time. Breathe out. On the inhale, lift the hips up. Go ahead and interlace the hands. Really using your glutes here. One more inhale. And then exhale, release. Breathe in and out for rest. On the next inhale, hips lift up. Bridge pose. Lower the hips down. We have one more, so you can do a bridge or option to do a wheel if that is in your practice. Go ahead, lift the hips up on the inhale, interlace the hands, rock those shoulders underneath you. Can you lift those hips just a little higher? Breathing for 3 more breaths. And then release to your reclined butterfly, soles of the feet together. And then put one hand over your heart, one hand on your belly. Feel that connection. Feel the heart beating, and feel the belly rising and falling as you breathe. Go ahead and close the knees and then lift your feet to tabletop. Bring the hands behind your head. We're gonna go ahead and get started with some bicycle crunches. So the opposite elbow comes to the opposite knee and we extend. And then come back to center and then opposite elbow, opposite knee. So these are nice and slow and controlled. There's no need to rush here. Finding that connection and then back to center. Belly button into the spine, spine presses into the mat. Continuing. One more each side. And then you can release down. Find that reclined butterfly one more time. Open up through the hips. And then bring your hands behind your head. We're gonna keep our feet in that position as we crunch up and down. So I want you to really actively press your feet together. Good. And then lower down. So this is gonna really activate the lower abs, lifting and lowering. lift up, and then control going down. Lift and lower. We have 5 more. Breathing. 2 more. Final 1. And then coming back to tabletop position with your legs. Press your hands into your thighs. Actively push your thighs into your hands and then lift your head, neck, and shoulders. So we're not moving here. We're in this isometric hold, but we should be shaking. You should feel the tightness here in your core. Breathe. 3, 2, and 1. Lift the legs up to the sky, and the arms can come down by your side. So 1 heel at a time is going to lower down to the mat, and then come right back up. So I want you to keep your lower back on the mat. So go to the depth that you can before the back comes off the mat. Alternating legs. Stay with it. 2 more each side. One more. And then go ahead and give your knees a nice squeeze. So give yourself a good hug here. Rock side to side, maybe massage that back out just a little bit. We're gonna find plow pose. So we're gonna bring those feet overhead here so that they connect down to the ground. Keep that chin tucked to your chest. And then option for shoulder stand. So if you want to bring your hands to your lower back and lift the feet up to the sky, you can. Or we can stay here in this plow pose. Squeezing those legs together. Pointing your toes. Breathing here. Don't forget to breathe. And we're going to exit this pose the way we came in. So you're going to come back to your plow. Toes touch the ground. And then you're going to bend your knees at your side. And then roll all the way down to the mat. Bring those knees in for 1 more hug here. And we're going to start to rock and roll. So you're going to rock and roll, massaging out that spine, gaining enough momentum that we eventually sit up. And we're going to spin those legs around to the side and find your downward facing dog. Reach that right leg up. Put a nice bend in the knee, open up that hip. And we're going to find half pigeon. So your right ankle's coming to your left wrist. And that shin's going to be parallel to the front of the mat. And then lengthen the back leg. Lift up to lengthen before we fold down to surrender. It's nice to sometimes stack both fists to make a little rest for your forehead. This pose always symbolizes the end of class. So I encourage you to really stay present, stay focused. Don't let the mind wander to what you need to do after this. You've committed this time to yourself, so honor it. Honor it through to the end. Allow yourself to surrender. And when that mind does start to wander, Just keep coming back to the breath. On that inhale, can you pause? Maybe sip just a little more in before you exhale. Come back to your tall arms. And then you're gonna come to the back toes. Lift that leg back to your downward facing dog. Left leg's gonna lift up. Three-legged dog, bend and open. And then left wrist, or left ankle to the right wrist. Half pigeon. Before you release down, lengthen through the spine. And find that nice hip opening stretch here. Take 5 more breaths. In your own time, there's no rush. We'll all meet back in a downward facing dog. Our last one of class today. Walk the feet forward. Take a seat, extend the legs nice and long. Reach the arms up and fold forward. And then inhale, kind of do a halfway lift to lengthen, and then fold forward again. So inhale, lengthen the spine, and then exhale, fold, seeing if you can just get a little deeper. From here, you're gonna bring your hands back behind your hips so that your fingertips are facing the front. And then you're gonna bend your knees and we're gonna come into a reverse tabletop. So lift your hips on up. And if it feels good, let your head hang back. Really open up here through the shoulders. Lift those glutes just a little higher. Press down through your feet. And we're gonna sink the hips down to the mat. Bring the feet up to a boat pose, and then extend the arms long. And we're gonna move back and forth between that reverse tabletop and boat. So find your reverse table. Good. Sink the hips, lift the legs, find your boat. Reverse table. Sink the hips, find boat. Reverse table. Hips, find boat. Now hold here. Maybe extend the legs for an extra challenge, or maybe you need a little more support, so you grab underneath your knees. Find low boat, and then lower all the way down to the mat. You're gonna bring your right knee in for a hug. And you're gonna take it across your body for a nice supine twist, making sure both shoulder blades are pressing into your mat. Bring it back in for a squeeze, lengthen down, and then bring your left leg up. Take it across your body. And then bring both knees in for a hug. Grab the outside of your feet for a happy baby. Just taking those knees down to the mat, opening up through the hips, pressing back through the spine. You can rock side to side. One more hug into your knees. Lift your head up Maybe forehead comes to your knees. Squeeze really tight before releasing down for Shavasana. So feet are wide, arms are long, palms open. Closing your eyes. Releasing that Ujjayi breath. So just resting here. Soaking in all the goodness of this practice. Start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Take a full body stretch, so reaching those arms overhead, pointing your toes, and then rolling on to your right side. Taking a breath in here of gratitude for showing up today. For setting aside the 60 minutes for yourself. Coming up to an easy seated pose with your hands at your heart. You can keep your eyes closed or you can blink them open. Thank you for sharing your practice with me today. Bring the thumb knuckles to your forehead. And together we say, Namaste.